Ride-sourcing services offered by companies like Uber and Lyft have transformed urban mobility over the past decade. Carnegie Mellon researchers are studying these trends to understand how they have affected U.S. cities. I'm Jeremy Michalek, a professor at Carnegie Mellon College of Engineering, and these are some of our findings. It turns out that compared to personal vehicles, Uber and Lyft clean the air but clog the streets. By simulating trips, we estimate that an Uber or Lyft ride creates less air pollution than a personal vehicle, but the extra driving to and from passengers increases costs from traffic effects and climate change. On balance, you impose lower costs on society when you drive your personal car on average. One way to reduce these costs is to encourage pooled rides over solo rides, and some cities have tried this. Chicago, for example, implemented a tax in 2020 during peak hours to encourage pooled rides and discourage travel in target zones. We found that it did, in fact, achieve these goals, so policy incentives can be effective. But you might wonder how much governments should be encouraging pooling. We simulated how differently a ride-sourcing firm might operate if it had to pay for the traffic and emissions costs it imposes on society. We found that while pooling can substantially reduce these costs, private incentives already encourage pooling at socially efficient levels, so imposing much higher pooling rates may come at a cost. So what about the environment? Uber and Lyft have both committed to electrify more of their fleets in the coming years, and California is requiring an increasing portion of ride-sourcing travel to be served without tailpipe emissions. Is this justified? We find that simulated fleets faced with the traffic and emissions costs they impose on society will electrify more of their vehicles. This suggests that there is a public interest in encouraging Uber and Lyft to electrify. Though the socially optimal fleet usually leverages a mix of technologies, so it's good for policies to be flexible. Even with the cleanest electricity sources, electrifying Uber and Lyft will not alone eliminate costs to society, since most of these costs come from congestion and crash risk. You might expect that when Uber and Lyft become available, people would own fewer cars because they can call a ride instead. But we found that vehicle ownership actually increases on average, especially in car-dependent cities and slow-growth cities. So ride-sourcing does not look like a reliable way to reduce car ownership. We also found that Uber and Lyft displace transit ridership most in cities with high income and fewer children. Overall, Uber and Lyft affect different kinds of cities differently, and that's important to understanding their impact. Uber and Lyft have made a lot of public claims about providing flexible jobs and boosting the local economy. Analyzing the data, we found that Uber and Lyft do, in fact, increase employment, especially for unstable jobs such as seasonal, temporary, or otherwise intermittent jobs. Average wages for these unstable jobs also increase when Uber and Lyft show up, as does the local economy overall. So Uber and Lyft do appear to have contributed economic benefits to U.S. cities. Uber and Lyft can potentially reveal, help address, or exacerbate existing inequities in society. During heat waves in New York, ridership jumped most among high-income riders who could afford surge prices to reduce their exposure to extreme temperatures. And during early COVID lockdowns in Chicago, ridership dropped most from higher income locations, suggesting that lower income riders are more likely to have essential travel needs with fewer alternative travel options. We looked at the potential role of ride-sourcing in a pandemic. We found that dispatching ride-sourcing vehicles to help reduce bus density doesn't pay off because there are too many additional driver-passenger interactions to reduce viral spread. But driverless ride-sourcing vehicles can lower risks and potentially do so cost-effectively. Carnegie Mellon researchers are continuing to study these and other trends in energy, environmental, equity, and transportation changes in our society.